Hey, what's up, y'all? Y'all good? I hope so. Okay, so this book right here has a lot of jumping around in the beginning. So I had to figure out a way to structure it so that everything flowed right. Because look, we ain't got time to be confused about what's going on. But where we left off in book two, Kia told Lewis about a man blackmailing Freddie to set him up. Once she described the little that she knew, Lewis knew exactly who she was talking about. Then Lewis went over to the construction company where he found Freddie in the alley on the phone, and Freddie was talking to Nate. Lewis put them paws on Freddie, which made Freddie confess everything. And he told Lewis where the 50K was. Lewis makes it to Nate's, forced him in the house, and takes the money back. Nate called Monica and said that Lewis robbed him. Lewis was able to put the money back in the bank, but when he got to Monica's, got to their house, Monica was sitting outside. And she asked Lewis why was he trying to put Layla up for adoption? Because remember that family that he had discussed that with, the mom rolled up on Monica. She went over there and that's how she found out everything, right? And she also wanted to know why did he rob Nate. Lewis was trying to explain everything, but then the boys rolled up and arrested him. Freddie went to Nate to get the keys to the townhome that Nate promised him, but since Freddie told Lewis about the plan, Nate said that he broke their agreement, so he wasn't getting the house. So Freddie asked for the deed to his childhood home, which Nate said that he was going to give to him. But since Freddie didn't stick to the rules of the plan, Nate sold the house to a developer who was scheduled to bulldoze the home in a matter of weeks. Freddie couldn't believe it, and that sent him over the edge. So far over the edge that he showed up at Nate's house and let off several rounds into Nate and one into Monica. Then he left, and now here we are, ready to enter book 3, The Million Dollar Demise. So this book picks up right where the end of book 2 left off. And Freddie is having flashbacks of ringing the doorbell at Nate's house, forcing Nate in. Nate turning around with this old smug look on his face saying, I tell you what I'm going to do. And that's when Freddie let fireball right into Nate's chest, stomach, and thighs. And what Freddie remembered most was how calming the piece going off in his hand felt. And then he remembered Nate's shirt going from white to red, and then he heard a scream. Freddie remembered hearing, Monica, no! But Freddie only remembered hearing that after he let off another one that tore through the side of the woman's forehead, and then she dropped to the ground. And that's when Freddie realized it was Monica. Then he saw Nate fall across the sofa. Freddie was thinking that he didn't mean to unalive the woman, but at the same time, maybe it was for the best. And right when he was about to walk out of the house, he heard movement behind him and a little boy saying, Mommy, Daddy, as he was pulling on Nate's arm. Freddie walked over to the boy and pointed the piece in the child's face. And as soon as he looked at him, images of Kia getting the procedure done to get rid of their baby ran through his mind. And he felt like if it wasn't for Nate, Kia would never have done it. So the way Freddie saw it, it was an eye for an eye and a child for a child. He put more pressure on that trigger, but he just couldn't do it. So he put the piece back in his jeans, turned, and walked out the door. As Freddie stood outside the house, with his hand still on that heat in his pocket, he could feel the warmth of it in his hand. He noticed that he wasn't shaking anymore, but he also noticed that there were no people outside trying to figure out where those pops came from, and he didn't hear any sirens. He noticed that the sun was going down, and that made him think about how his life was okay until 4 weeks ago when he met Nate Kinney, the man who blackmailed him and had him go against his best friend. He remembered telling Nate he didn't want to do it, but then Nate said he had bought the taxes on his home. He showed Freddie a brand new townhome, and just thinking about the house they lived in, the neighborhood, his mom being mugged, him having a baby on the way, that was enough to make him do what Nate asked. But even though he did everything, Nate still reneged on the deal because Freddie told Lewis. So Nate did exactly what he said he was going to do. And that was have Freddie and his family evicted and have the house demolished. And Freddie could see his mom standing in the yard crying as the men were taking all of their things out of the house and sitting on the curb. And what hurt most was what Kia did to their unborn child. At that moment, standing on Nate's porch, all of those thoughts confirmed to him that he had nothing. And that was why Nate had to go. But just as Freddie was about to walk away, He knew Nate and Monica's unalivings were not enough for him. So Freddie went back into the house to the living room, and the little boy was still trying to wake his dad. Freddie reached over and grabbed the child. Nathaniel kicked and screamed and held on as tightly as he could to his daddy's shirt. "Come here, little boy." Freddie picked him up and held him close to his chest and wrapped his arms around his legs. Freddie looked back at all the destruction he just caused. Then he stepped over Nate's body and walked out of the house with Nathaniel. So Freddie sat in front of Nate's mansion for a minute, trying to figure out what to do next. But he could barely think because Nathaniel was in the passenger seat crying. "Would you shut up? Just for 1 minute, kid. Please shut up. I need to think." Freddie knew that he was going to have to let his mama know what happened, but first he was going to stop by Kia's house. Just before getting there, he pulled into an alley, put duct tape on Nathaniel, and put him in the trunk. Then he drove on to Kia's house. Once he got there, he opened the trunk to check on Nathaniel. "Don't worry, kid. Don't worry. I know you're scared, but I ain't going to hurt you. Just chill right here. Just a little longer, and I'll be right back, okay?" Then he closed the trunk back. Freddie walked to the door, wishing he didn't look like a bum. He lost about 10 pounds, since he had been going through everything. His clothes was hanging all off of him. His hair had grown out longer. But none of that mattered because he was just there to say a few things to Kia. He knew there was a chance that her father was there, but all he could do was ask politely to see her. If he wouldn't allow it, Freddie would ask him one more time. And if he didn't do it, then he would send him to wherever he just sent Nate and Monica. Because in his mind, he'd already taken out 2 people. What difference would one more make? He rang the doorbell and saw someone look out the window on the door. He couldn't make out who it was, but when the door opened, it was Kia, and Freddie was relieved. Freddie couldn't help but smile when he saw her, but Kia, she didn't look too happy to see him. "What are you doing here, Freddie? You know that my father would..." "I don't give a fuck about your father." Freddie had to take a deep breath. He realized he did not mean to say that. He apologized and he told Kia that he was just there to tell her something. "Can you open the door or come out on the porch?" "No. If you have something to say, then say it. Kia, all I ever wanted was to be married to you, have a kid or 2, and be better than my father was to me. But that's all gone now. But it wasn't my fault. Someone else is to blame for that. But I took care of it though. The man who was blackmailing me, I took care of it." "Wait, what do you mean took care of it?" "I just did. I handled it. And I was just coming here to say that because you may be hearing some things in a few days, and I just didn't want you to think that I was evil or something." "Freddie, did what? What did you do?" "I did it because I love you. I loved our baby, and I know that if it wasn't for that man, we would still be together, and you'll still have my baby, so he had to pay." "Freddie, you're scaring me. What are you talking about?" "Kia, listen. I'm sorry how things turned out. I really am. I never meant to hurt you in any way, but I'm sorry about how things turned out. But once you find out what happened, please try to remember me the way you saw me when you still loved me, okay?" Kia had tears streaming down her cheeks. She couldn't believe what she was hearing and didn't know the full details, but she had a strange feeling about what Freddie was telling her, and she was hoping that it wasn't what she was thinking. She just leaned into the door and told him, "Okay." Then Freddie walked away and headed on to see his mom. When he got to his uncle's house, his mom was asleep. He gently shook her to wake her up. She turned over, squinting at the light from the TV. She looked up and asked Freddie if everything was okay because he usually doesn't wake her when she's sleeping. "I ain't got much time, so I need to say what I gotta say." What's going on, Freddie?" "Moms, I did something, and it's something that I'll be in trouble for. I know I've been nothing but trouble for you. I know I'm the reason Dad is gone and the reason we live the way that we do. But the situation that now has us living with Uncle Henry was supposed to make our lives better. But that man lied to me. He said he was going to give us a new house, but he didn't." "Freddie, please don't tell me you did what I think you did. Freddie, please, what did you do?" "Moms, I'm sorry, but I had to do what needed to be done." Freddie's mom was crying and she was hurting for her son. He told her that he was sorry, but he wasn't going to jail because he wasn't wrong. He was about to tell her where he was headed, but she told him not to because if the police showed up, she didn't want to lie to them. So Freddie didn't tell her. He gave her a kiss, said, "I love you," and left. Now, about half an hour later, Tim pulled up to Nate's house. He tried calling him a couple of times since he was in the neighborhood, but he didn't get an answer. But Nate had been a little hard to get in touch with now that he was back with Monica, so Tim decided to stop by anyway. He walked up to the door and was about to ring the doorbell until he noticed the door was slightly open. He slowly pushed it open and asked if anyone was there. There wasn't an answer, so he pushed it all the way open, walked down the hall towards the living room. "Hello? Nate? Monica?" When he stepped into the living room, he gasped, "Oh my God, Nate! No, 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 Nate!" He ran over to Nate, and as he got closer, he saw Monica. He didn't know who to check first. Tim's mind was going 100 miles a minute. All types of questions were running through his head. Where's Mrs. Weatherly? Where are the children? Are they hurt? Where are they? Is anybody else in the house? Tim dug in his pocket for his phone and called 911. 911, what is your emergency? Please, my brother and his wife, they've been hit. Please send the ambulance. I need the ambulance right now. Now, over there with Freddie. Freddie had been gone for about 4 hours now. He looked back at Nathaniel in the back seat. Then he called his friend Joni. It was like 4:13 in the morning by this time. But if he remembered Joni correctly, she was still up. But he knew that she'd probably try to get smart with him since he hadn't talked to her in over a year. So he called her and she answered. He told her that he needed to come and stay with her. "You in trouble again?" "What if I said I was?" "Then I say, shit, ain't nothing changed, and tell you to come on down here. I miss your old crazy self anyway." "Well, this time it's serious." "Okay, whatever. Just get here when you get here." Freddie said okay and put the phone back on the passenger seat. And then he saw blue and red flashing lights in his rearview mirror. He couldn't believe it. He slowly pulled the car over to the side, hoping that the officer was going to pass him, but he pulled over as well. Freddie got his piece from the glove box and set it near his hip and covered it with his right hand. Freddie was wondering if they had found the bodies in Chicago already, because he couldn't understand why he was being pulled over. He wasn't speeding. Nothing. No broken headlights, tail lights, nothing. Freddie watched the silhouette get out of the car, and there was only one officer. He was thinking, okay, he shouldn't be much trouble. The officer walked cautiously up to Freddie's door with his hand on his piece and told Freddie to put his hands where he could see them. "I'll need your license and registration." Freddie didn't look at the officer, but he did ask him, why did he stop him? "I'm asking the questions here, son. License and registration. They're in the glove box. Can I get them?" Slowly, with one seamless motion, like it came straight out of the Equalizer handbook, Freddie lifted his piece, whirled it in the direction of the man, and Freddie let off one round that went straight through the forehead and out the back. The man stood there for a minute and then his body was falling backwards. But before the man's body hit the ground, Freddie was at the cruiser looking for any cameras. But he didn't find any, so he ran back to the car and sped off because he couldn't take the chance of anyone seeing him. All the commotion had woke Nathaniel up and he was screaming in fear. Freddie didn't want to do it. He just remembered as he was driving, I said, I would never unalive anybody else after my father. But Nate had forced his hand. And since he didn't want to hurt the man in blue, that body belonged to Nate. Over there with Tim was now at the hospital where Nate and Monica was for the last couple of hours, where the doctors had been working to save their lives. He was in Nate's room, but the doctors didn't have much hope for him. But Nate is not the type of man to give up. Nate could hear something going beep, 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 but he couldn't see anything, but he could feel the pain throughout his body. He thought he moved his foot, but he wasn't sure. He didn't know if he was really awake or if he was dreaming because everything was so dark. He tried to move his left hand and he rubbed his fingertips over the cold linen. Then he heard a voice say, "He moved. I think I saw his hand move." Nate can hear me. He can hear me. Nate, if you can hear me, please open your eyes. Nate knew the voice was his brother's, but then he heard someone say, "Sir, I don't think he can hear you." Nate didn't know who that was, but he tried his best to open his eyes. His lids were heavy, things started to look white, and he saw three fuzzy images in front of him. He blinked about 4 times as hard as he could to try and get everything into focus. Then he saw a smile spread across Tim's face. "Nate, how are you feeling?" "Where am I?" And before Tim could even say anything, everything that had happened, it started to flood back to his memory. From Freddie forcing him inside the house, the sizzling metal entering his body, to Monica hitting the floor, his son screaming, and then everything went black. Nate grabbed Tim's wrist, trying to get out of the bed. Where's Monica? Where's Nathaniel and Layla?" "Mr. Kenny, my name is Detective Davis, and this is Detective Martins. We're investigating this case. Can you tell us who did this to you?" "Tim, where is Monica?" "Where are the kids?" "Sir, if I could just ask you a few questions." Nate tried his best to yell at the officers, but his lungs were too weak. "Where is my wife? I want to know where's my wife. And where is my son?" Tim put his hand on Nate's shoulder and told him that Monica had been popped in the head. "I know that. I saw it, but, is she?" "No. I found the two of you in time, called an ambulance, and you both have gone through surgery. You're going to be fine, but Monica is in a coma. They don't know when or if she's going to wake up." Nate was really trying to get up, but all those tubes and the pain in his body that he felt when he tried to sit up made him lay right on back down. "I need to see her, Tim." "And where are the kids?" "I know that Layla was taking a nap, but before I passed out, I could hear Nathaniel crying. Did you bring him?" "Nate, Layla was sleeping, but Nathaniel, he wasn't there." "What do you mean he wasn't there? Did y'all check? Did you check the entire house? Did he wander off?" Detective Davis told Nate that they believe whoever hurt him and his wife is the same person who may have taken his son. Nate looked up at the ceiling, fighting back tears. "Can you give us a description of the person, Mr. Kenny?" "I know who it is. It was Freddie Ford. The man's name is Freddie Ford." Now over there with Lewis, it was 7:30 in the morning, and Lewis was sitting in the courtroom with his public defender. They were waiting for Nate and Monica to arrive. "Where are they? Aren't they supposed to be here by now?" Yeah, they are. Give me a minute." So Lewis's attorney went over and whispered something to Monica and Nate's attorney, and he saw the man hunch his shoulders. The attorney then walked back over to Lewis's table and said to the judge, "If no one is there to press charges, then there is nothing more to do but release Mr. Waters." The judge asked the opposing attorney where was his clients, but he said that he'd been trying to reach them, but he wasn't getting an answer. So the judge said that he'll give Monica and Nate until tomorrow to appear, and if they weren't there to bring charges against Lewis, then all charges would be dropped. Back over there with Freddie, he had pulled over once he'd gotten a couple of hours out from the crime scene, and he was staring out at the sunrise, looking over a lake with lots of trees. He felt at peace in that moment, and he just wanted to soak it all in because he knew that it would be a matter of time before all hell broke loose. Nathaniel was crying and saying that he wanted to see his daddy. He wanted his daddy, and he told Freddie, "You hurt my daddy." Freddie told him that he was going to see his daddy as long as he stopped crying. Then he bribed him with a candy bar. Nathaniel said, "Okay." And then Freddie gave him some distance between him and Nathaniel because he needed to make a phone call. "Cook County Department of Corrections, can I help you?" "Yeah, I need to speak with an inmate by the name of Lewis Waters." "And your name?" "Freddie Ford." Then They put Freddie on hold, and it took a minute for them to come back to the phone, but once it was answered, he was happy that it was Lewis and not the officer saying that the inmate didn't want to talk to him. I told you not to contact me no more. It really hurt Freddie to hear Lewis talk like that to him because they had been so cool for so long. But it was clear that those days were long gone. Listen, man, don't hang up. I got something to say. F you, Freddie. Don't call me. I told you don't call me no more. I took care of him. I took care of him for you. There was a long pause, and then Lewis asked Freddie, took care of who? For who? That motherfucker who did this to us. Freddie, the only motherfucker that did anything to me was you. Who are you talking about, and what the heck did you do? Nate, I told you I was going to take care of him, and I did. What? What did you do, Freddie? You better tell me, I'm hanging up. I popped the man. I unalived him. Lewis did not want to believe what Freddie had just said. Freddie, tell me you didn't do that, man. We used to be friends, Lewis. He used me against you, and now, listen, I just had to. Lewis felt sick to his stomach. He couldn't stand Nate, but he didn't want that to happen to him. Lewis was visualizing how it may have happened, and then his heart started racing. Wait, where did you do it? At his house. Lewis was sweating so bad, the phone almost slipped out of his hand. Where was Monica? Freddie didn't say anything because he didn't know what to say. He didn't know if he should tell the truth or lie, but he felt like lying is what got him in the mess that he's in now with Lewis. And Lewis made it clear that they not friends no more. So Freddie said, I ain't know she was there, man. What are you talking about, Freddie? Look, the piece was in my hand. My adrenaline was going. I heard a scream. It scared me. And then what? What, Freddie? I ain't mean to, Lewis, but I popped her too. Lewis started screaming, and he could hear the guards telling him to quiet down or else. But by that time, Freddie had hung up, and he told Nathaniel that it was time to leave. Now, back over there at the hospital, Nate was demanding to see Monica, but his doctor told him that he was not allowed to get out of bed for nothing. But Nate wouldn't let up, so the nurses helped him into a wheelchair and rolled him into Monica's room. Her doctor was in there, and he told Nate that he had good news and bad news. Nate wanted the good news first. The doctor told Nate that there were a number of things working in Monica's favor, one being that the pop came from a .22. It struck her above the outer corner of her left eye and penetrated the frontal bone. It shattered, with much of it exiting the parietal bone without doing any serious damage to any of her brain tissue. The doctor said that they removed all the fragments that were lodged in the tissue of her brain without doing any permanent damage. So with all that being said, Monica should wake up. But the bad news was, even though the injury wasn't lethal, she did suffer a lot of swelling on the brain. And the minutes immediately after a head injury are crucial. But since a great amount of time had passed before they could relieve the pressure, she's going to wake up. They just didn't know when. And they won't know that until she wakes up. They won't know what state she's in. They won't know her condition. They won't know anything until she regains consciousness to give a definitive answer. And that hurt Nate to no end, because even though his body was in pain and he felt a sharp pain in his chest every time he breathed, he could sit up, stand, walk a little bit, and he was going to make a full recovery. He couldn't say the same for Monica. Nate held Monica's hands and thought back to that day. Then he thought back to that morning when he spoke to the detectives and told them everything he knew about Freddie. And he didn't hold back anything. He told them how he blackmailed Freddie and everything. Detective Davis was looking at Nate with disgust. Since you took his home from him, do you know where he is now? Nate noticed how the man looked at him, and he didn't appreciate it. But he told him that he didn't know where Freddie was. And he told the detective, that's your job. And you better do it. He tried to take us up out of here, and there's a good chance that he has my son. Detective Davis put his pad back in his pocket and just stared at Nate. Detective Martins told him that they understood, and he guaranteed that they would find Freddie. And as Nate was reminiscing on all of that, he felt tears rolling down his cheeks. Nate got as close to Monica as he could, and he whispered to her that he promised that he would get Freddie. He would get him for doing this to her, and he would get their son back if he had to give his own life to do it. So Freddie has now made it to Atlanta, to Joni's house, and it was around 2 in the afternoon. He was just sitting in the driveway considering whether to go in or just drive off. But he knew if he drove off, he wouldn't have anywhere to go. And if he stayed, he knew Joni would have taken care of them because him and Joni used to be an item before he met Kia. He loved Joni, but it was something about Kia that made him want to be a better man. So he broke it off with Joni, and that's when she moved to Atlanta, plus her father had passed away and left his house to her. Freddie saw somebody peek through the curtains, and he knew it was Joni. And then she fully opened the curtains, just staring at him. He knew that Joni was probably thinking that he was considering driving off because she knew him that well. Not only were they once a couple, but they also went to high school together. They grew up together. He knew if he never met Kia, he would have married Joni, and they would have been, they would have been a family. And that was another reason he was thinking about driving off. Even though they used to be an item, they haven't seen each other in a minute. And he didn't want to get caught by trusting her, and he didn't want her getting into any serious trouble by helping him with something that she doesn't even have a clue about. But he knew he didn't have he didn't have nowhere else to go. So he got out, grabbed Nathaniel, who was asleep, and went on in the house. As soon as Freddie walked in, Joni asked him who was the kid. Freddie told her that he would tell her about the kid later, but first, the both of them need to lay down somewhere because they need some sleep. They went upstairs. Freddie put Nathaniel in one room, and he was heading to the other room, but he stopped Joni and asked her what was wrong with her face because her left eye was swollen and her lip had a cut in the middle. She said she'll tell him about it later. After about 5 hours of sleep, Freddie got up and he was feeling a little refreshed, but he was wondering what was going on back in Chicago. He was wondering if anybody had found the bodies yet, but he shook that off, peeked in on Nathaniel, who was still sleeping, and then he headed downstairs because he smelled some food cooking. As Freddie was going down the stairs, he could hear Joni on the phone telling somebody that it was over, not to come around her place anymore, and that she was serious about it. By the time Freddie made it into the kitchen, Joni had ended the conversation, and she was startled to see Freddie when she turned around. She was cooking breakfast food because she said that she didn't have anything else. She made a plate for Freddie and one for herself. Halfway through the meal, Freddie asked her if she called off of work for the day because he saw that she was still there, and she said that she didn't work. So Freddie wanted to know how was she able to afford a house. Well, the last scam was a good one. I knew a guy who worked at a home improvement store, and the plan was for him to push a box on me from like 30 feet up. I'd sue, and we split the money. I wasn't really hurt, but I had an Oscar-worthy performance. Wait, y'all really did that? Yeah. I mean, it took about a year to get the settlement, but we split $250,000. It's almost gone, but I've been living on it for about 3 years now. Girl, you are crazy. You haven't changed not one bit. Look, a girl's gotta live, but that doesn't mean she gotta work. They both started laughing, and then, things got quiet. Then Joni asked Freddie, what did he do to make him have to run away from Chicago? But Freddie didn't want to tell her. He just said that it was best that she didn't know. So she asked about Kia. At first, Freddie didn't want to tell her, but Joni told him that he was in her house eating her food. At least he could tell her that. And Freddie said that Kia thought that she was too good for him, and she left him. Then she asked about Nathaniel again and wanted to know if Freddie was throwing the kid in her face because he knew how bad she wanted a child with him. And Freddie said that it was nothing like that. And the kid, it ain't even mine. That boy ain't mine. Joni started gathering their dishes, and Freddie asked her, did the conversation on the phone have anything to do with her face? Joni said that she had it all under control, but Freddie told her that it better be, and even though he didn't live there, he wasn't going to sit around and watch somebody do her dirty. So now it's the next morning, and Louis was back in court for his follow-up appearance. 15 minutes had already passed by, and he looked over his shoulders a million times, hoping to see Nate and Monica walk through those doors. But he knew that it wasn't going to happen. If anyone else had told them what Freddie said, he wouldn't believe them. But Freddie saying he did it was a whole nother thing, because Lewis remembered seeing Freddie covered in his daddy's red fluid, holding that baseball bat with an empty expression on his face. So all Lewis could do was pray that Nate and Monica were still alive, and hopefully somebody got them to the hospital. But he was worried more about Layla, because when he called Freddie back to ask about her, the call went straight to voicemail, and all Lewis could do was add Layla to the prayer and hope that she would sleep in her room. He had got so angry after that call that they stationed a guard outside of his cell, and the guard was looking at Lewis like he felt like there was something that Lewis wanted to tell him, and he knew he should, but Lewis was not about to risk the chance of them pinning all that on him. So as they waited in that courtroom, he was still hopeful that Nate and Monica would walk through the door, but by that time, the judge had asked their lawyer if they were coming. He said that they were, and Lewis got hopeful, and he wondered if the attorney had talked to them, which is the same thing the judge asked. But the attorney said that he hadn't, and he hadn't had a chance to stop by because his workload was so heavy. And at that, the judge pounded his gavel and said, as of today, Mr. Lewis Waters will be released from custody due to failure to appear by Mrs. Monica Kinney and Mr. Nate Kinney. Lewis was finally processed out of jail, and his mind was spinning. He had $42 to his name, his phone was out of power, and he didn't have anywhere to go. But he had to find out what happened to Monica, and he knew exactly where to go, and that was to Arrow to speak to Tabitha. When he got there, the store was full of men shopping for suits and getting tailored. He didn't see Tabitha, but he did see Roland, who was looking scared when he looked up and saw him. Roland, is Tabitha here? Roland didn't know what to do, so he picked up the phone and Lewis grabbed his wrist. Roland, I asked you if Tabitha was here. Roland got to stuttering, but he noticed Roland looking behind him, and when he turned around, he saw Tabitha standing in the hallway looking just as shocked to see him as Roland was. So Lewis headed over to Tabitha. What are you doing here? They let me out. I need to talk to you. Roland called over to Tabitha and asked her if she needed him to call 911. Tabitha, tell him no. Because if you think I had anything to do with what happened to Nate and Monica, I didn't. I love her, and you know that. So Tabitha told Roland that everything was okay, and she took Lewis back into the office. So, how do I know that you didn't have anything to do with getting them popped? They could have been unalived. Wait, so they're not deceased? No, I just saw both of them yesterday. Well, how is she? She's in a coma, but they don't know when she'll wake up. Do you know where my daughter is? Is she okay? Was she hurt? No, Layla is fine. She's with Tim. Okay. Well, where is Monica? I need to see her. And please don't keep this from me. A month ago, we were about to get married. She was going to adopt Layla, and we were finally going to be a family. Well, that was a month ago, and you won't be getting married to her because she's going to marry Nate. And something tells me that you had something to do with what happened to them. Tabitha, I already told you I didn't have anything to do with that. And what I do know makes this even more complicated. But I would never hurt her like that. I just want to be there for her and make sure she's all right. You know what, Lewis? If she never met you, you wouldn't have to make sure she was okay. But I do know she once loved you. And I don't know if those feelings are still the same. But I'm sure she wants you to know where she was. So I'll tell you. Now, over at the hospital, Nate was in Monica's room talking with the coma specialist. He let Nate know that Monica's doctors are doing all that can be done, and he doesn't see any reasons why Monica won't wake from her coma. Nate didn't like the answer because he felt like if this is supposed to be a specialist, there should be more that he could do. And he told the specialist that, look, money ain't no issue. But the doctor had to explain to him that it had nothing to do with money, but everything to do with time. And that it had only been a couple of days, so he would have to allow the coma time to wear off before Nate makes any request for extensive treatments. So the doctor leaves, and Nate pushes his walker over to a chair in the corner and sits down in agony. Then he heard a knock at the door, and it was Abby coming to let him know that she spoke with Freddie's mom and ex-girlfriend, and they hold Nate responsible for everything, and they refuse to talk to them anymore. Abby also said that she tried to talk to the detectives who told her to butt out and let them handle the case. And that really pissed Nate off. He couldn't do nothing but rub his head. And when he looked up, he was shocked to see Lewis standing in the doorway. What the hell are you doing here? I came to see Monica. Why aren't you in prison? And before Lewis could answer, Nate remembered that they never showed up for court. So the judge must have let Lewis go because no one was there to press charges. Lewis was walking over to Monica's bed to get a closer look at her, and Nate told him not to go near her. Is she okay? Does she look okay? With all of those tubes and bandages all over her? She's in a coma. They say she's going to wake up, but they don't know when. Lewis said that, it could have been worse. And then he told Nate that he was going to have to give Layla back. But Nate said no. And Lewis didn't like that. So he started walking towards Nate. But Abby slid her hand in her jacket, and that made Lewis stop in his tracks. Lewis, this is all your fault? It's your fault that psychopath tried to unalive me and my wife. She ain't your wife. And he took my son. So you're not getting your daughter back until I get my son back. That really made Lewis want to put hands on Nate. But that was until Abby moved her jacket and showed her hand wrapped around that 9. I wouldn't do that if I was you, Mr. Waters. Well. It seems like we have us a little situation here, Waters. I could call the attorney and have you back in court, convicted and sentenced. Nate, I'm not a fool. It's too late for that. It's not even possible. Maybe not, but I could have you taken into custody under the suspicion that you had something to do with me and Monica getting hit. I didn't have anything to do with that, and you know it. I would never hurt Monica, and I ain't never going back to jail. Fine. Then how about you and I make a little deal? You help me find your friend Ford and get my son back. Then you get Layla back and stay out of jail. Will you help me? Lewis was a little hesitant, but Lewis said okay, and they shook on it. Hey, that's the end of part 1. Now tell me, why won't these folks stop fooling with Nate? Like, how, y'all see what this man be doing, and y'all still be making deals with him? And Monica, why did you even go back to him? This don't make child DP first. Listen, get down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Thank you for liking, sharing, and subscribing. And I'll talk to y'all later.